What happens when a humble black grandfather is kicked out of his VIP seat for the convenience of a privileged white passenger? What followed just 5 minutes later shocked every single person on the plane, including the captain. Welcome back to the channel, where we break down the most powerful real-life stories that prove one thing: karma arrives exactly on time. Today's story is one of the most jaw-dropping examples of humility, hidden power, and justice you will ever hear. This video counts down the key moments that transformed a simple boarding issue into a career-ending disaster for an entire airline crew. So sit tight, because this story gets more unbelievable with every minute. Let's begin. Number 1. The very first mistake. Judging a man by his appearance. Story begins like most flight day stories do. Noisy gate area, passengers juggling luggage, kids crying, flight attendants speed walking like Olympic athletes. And in the middle of it all sat Mr. Harold Bennett, a 72-year-old grandfather, wearing a simple brown sweater, jeans, and old leather shoes. He looked exactly like what he was, a calm, gentle, retired man who didn't make trouble. But the flight crew took one look at him and made a critical assumption. He didn't look like someone who belonged in a VIP seat. Harold had paid for a first-class ticket, a VIP upgrade, and early boarding. He had the printed confirmation. He had the seat assigned. But the moment he sat down, a flight attendant side-eyed him with that expression people use when they think, "Are you sure you're supposed to be here?" This was their first mistake, because they judged him, without having the slightest clue who he was. Number 9. The problem passenger whispered. Second mistake was quieter but deadlier. Two attendants whispered in the aisle, "She's a frequent flyer. We can't upset her. He can sit anywhere. Move him. He's alone. She's important." They were talking about a white woman who had boarded late and demanded Harold's VIP seat, insisting she always got the right accommodation. The staff labeled her as important and Harold as replaceable. That whisper, just a whisper, set the entire disaster into motion, because labeling someone a problem passenger without cause is the fastest way to lose your job, and the crew didn't realize their little gossip session wasn't as private as they thought. Number 8. The attempt to politely push him out. First, the flight attendant approached with a sweet smile, the kind of aggressively polite smile that means trouble. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to move to another seat. There's been an update." Harold looked confused. He knew he bought the ticket. He knew this was his seat. But being the respectful man he was, he didn't raise his voice. He simply asked, "Is there a problem with my boarding pass?" The attendant didn't answer. She just repeated the request, this time dropping the fake sweetness. "Sir, you'll need to move." It was condescending. It was dismissive, and everyone around him could see it. Even worse, the staff didn't check a single record. They assumed wrongly that Harold didn't belong in first class. This was mistake number 8, and it was a big one. Number 7. Take your seat in economy. "Sir, here's where everything went downhill fast." The attendant pointed toward the back of the plane economy seating and said, "Your seat is back there." Harold calmly replied, "No, ma'am, this is the seat I paid for." Passengers around him began to turn and watch, and because the crew felt embarrassed being challenged, even politely they doubled down. Double quotes, "Sir, you need to follow instructions or we'll have to involve security." Security, for a 72-year-old man, sitting in his assigned seat. People around him began murmuring, "Is that really necessary? He didn't do anything. He's just sitting." But once the staff used that magic word, security, they committed to a decision they could no longer walk back, and that word would come back to haunt them. #6. The VIP passenger arrives and makes it worse. Then came the entitled passenger, the woman who basically started this whole mess. Expensive purse, diamond watch, a look on her face that said, "I expect the world to bend for me." She placed one hand on her hip and said loudly, "That's my seat. I always get 3A. Again, no, she didn't. Harold's ticket clearly said 3A. The crew didn't check. They didn't confirm. They didn't cross-reference. They simply nodded to the woman and treated Harold like he was in the way. This was mistake number 6, because when you publicly choose sides without facts, you choose consequences. And the consequences were already walking down the jet bridge, though nobody knew it yet. Number 5. Security shows up, and everyone starts filming. Now things got loud. Security arrived. Two officers who expected a problem but instead found a calm, respectful elderly man quietly holding out his ticket. Harold wasn't aggressive. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't resisting. Passengers started filming because they knew exactly what they were witnessing. An elderly black man being removed for absolutely no reason. Phones up, cameras rolling, whispers spreading. The flight attendants began panicking. They didn't want this going viral. But it was too late, and they still didn't know the biggest plot twist was about to unfold, because the man they were humiliating had a connection, a huge one within the airline, but the crew had no idea. Not yet. Number 4. Harold chooses dignity over drama. When the officers asked him to stand, Harold simply nodded and said, "I don't want trouble. I'll step aside." He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He didn't even raise his voice. He quietly gathered his belongings, shook his head sadly, and walked to the front of the plane with the officers. Nthat that dignity is what made the moment so powerful, because someone on the plane knew exactly who Harold Bennett was and they were watching. A passenger in row 2 slowly stood up, shocked. Because while the flight crew saw an old man, this passenger recognized him instantly. Number 3. The revealed identity. Sir, is your last name Bennett? Right as Harold reached the front of the plane, a businessman, well-dressed, mid-40s, rushed forward and gently asked, "Excuse me, sir, is your last name Bennett?" Harold nodded. The man's eyes widened. Because Harold Bennett wasn't just some random elderly traveler, was the father of the airline's vice president of operations, one of the most powerful people in the entire company, a man who could fire an entire department with a single phone call, and the staff had just humiliated his father, in front of cameras, over a seat that was rightfully his. This was mistake number 3, and it was fatal. Number 2, call your son. The businessman leaned in and said quietly, "Sir, you should call your son. Right now." Harold sighed, took out his phone, and dialed. He didn't yell. He didn't exaggerate. He simply told his son, "They removed me from my seat. Said it was for someone more important." Those words alone changed everything. Because within seconds, Harold's son, the vice president, responded, "I'm coming. Tell them not to take off." The flight attendant saw Harold's face change as he listened. Then he calmly stated to the officers, "My son asked that the flight be held," but the real shock came when one of the attendants nervously asked, "And who is your son?" Harold looked up with calm, quiet authority and answered, "He's your boss." Every color drained from their faces, and the captain, who overheard the name Bennett, instantly understood the magnitude of what had just happened. Number 1. The captain's announcement that ended careers. The captain stepped out of the cockpit, face stern, voice sharp. Everyone remained seated. This flight is temporarily delayed. Then he turned to the flight attendants, staff, off the aircraft. Now, passengers gasped. Phones were recording. The crew was frozen. The captain repeated, "You are being relieved of duty immediately." The attendants tried to protest, but the captain cut them off. "Save it. I already spoke with headquarters. You're done." And that moment was where the careers of the entire flight crew ended. But what happened next was even more shocking. And there you have it. A moment of injustice that began with a single seat and ended with an entire staff losing their jobs, not because of who Harold Bennett was, but because the staff forgot something far more important. Respect is owed to every human being, no matter how old they are, what they look like, or what assumptions you make about them. This story isn't just about an airline. It isn't just about a VIP seat, and it isn't even just about Harold's son stepping in with authority. It's about something deeper, something we all need to remember in our everyday lives. People carry stories. People carry weight. People carry dignity. You never know who's watching. You never know who someone is connected to. But even if you did, the truth remains. Treating people with kindness should never depend on their status. It should be automatic. Harold didn't shout. He didn't argue. He didn't meet disrespect with disrespect. He let the world see exactly who he was, without lowering himself to the level of those who judged him, and in the end, that quiet dignity spoke louder than any argument ever could. Whether you're young or old, wealthy or struggling, loud or softly spoken, everyone deserves fairness. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves to be treated like they matter, because they do. And if this story teaches us anything, it's that justice doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes, it arrives in silence. Sometimes, it arrives calmly. And sometimes, it arrives 5 minutes later. Before you click away, take a moment to reflect. If you were on that plane, which kind of person would you be? The kind who assumes? The kind who stands up for what's right? Or the kind who quietly turns away? Your choice, big or small, might change someone's entire day, or their entire life.